You join us now for the first and hopefully not last, depending on how this goes. New podcast. We're going to be looking at some transfer gossip and some done deals, seeing as we're already a few weeks into the transfer window. So I'm joined today by Tobias Bourne.
Hello.
Who, for previous Stew Review listeners, may recognise from a number of original miniature shorts at the end of the Stew Review film podcast. But I think we're putting on his serious cap for this one.
My serious voice.
Digging into the depths of the Football Manager database brain of his and pulling out a few sage gems of wisdom.
I promise not to do my Arnold Schwarzenegger impression again.
All good. So we're going to have a look at... We're going to start with some done deals, seeing as I said we're a couple of weeks in, and then we'll move on to some of the big current transfer rumours at the moment. So over the last weeks, we're going to mostly focus on the Premiership with a little bit of international. And the team who have been definitely going in for the early business this season have been Liverpool, who... Well, we got about 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4... We got 6 transfers already. When I was looking at this, I was thinking, because Liverpool have made some... Well, both Liverpool last season and Tottenham the other season did run into some noticeable issues where they'd sold players for big money, in the case of Suarez and Bale, and then the result of doing so seemed to be that every club wanted to stick 10-20% on the asking price of all their players.
They knew the coffers were...
coffers
were full, yeah.
So before we can start looking at this, I guess, but I'll put to you as well at the same time, Bias, that maybe Liverpool are trying to get in early because as soon as they sell Sterling, if they do, and they've got 50-60 million in the bank, the players they've now bought may have gone up another 5-10 million.
Yeah, I have to say as well, just the fact they have sort of made all these signings and so on so far, it does really go to show, I think, they are perhaps a team who had the most disappointing season. Brendan Rodgers perhaps is the most desperate manager, the most sort of insecure manager, and he's this is sort of in a way I wonder if there's a certain
sign of I need to get some stuff
panicking in. I need to get some stuff done. He's I think
not just a sign desperate. Of intelligent transfer scouting over the course of the year.
I think some of that as well, yeah.
Well, actually, should we find out? Should we go down the list and you can give us your thoughts on whether they're good signings and so forth?
Yeah.
So obviously the big name signing, by far the highest value transfer they've made is the Brazilian Roberto Firmino, which he paid 25 million from Hoffenheim. It's a 5-year deal, so he's obviously hoping that it's going to be a good investment in that sense.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think I've had a look at this player, and he does look like the sort of forward and the sort of player that Brendan Rodgers likes and gets the best out of. I guess he's kind of he's maybe somewhere between a kind of Suarez, Sturridge kind of player and someone like Coutinho. Okay. I think he's just in between.
So he could, an off the striker.
Maybe he's slightly more of an off-the-striker player, but I think you could play him as a striker. He does seem to... For a Brazilian, he seems just kind of quite straightforward and effective in terms of scoring quite a lot of goals. He gets quite a lot of assists as well. He seems like a finisher.
Indeed,
really.
Well, yeah, said with Hoffenheim, 47 goals and 151 appearances. So, obviously it is the Bundesliga where goals to game ratios, although it is Hoffenheim, he's not playing for Bayern, admittedly. But that's almost a 1 in 3, which is very, very good for a player of his position. Although I will just say as a quick note, obviously the Copa America is going on at the moment, and I don't know if you saw Neymar's sending off a couple of weeks ago for kind of kicking a ball into a Colombian player at the end of the end of the match. So there's obviously talk that Firmino, because he would have in theory played, although I think Robinho actually came in playing in Neymar's position. Obviously, the talk was that Firmino was going to come in and be the star of the Brazilian team. Now Neymar had been suspended for 4 games. It turns out they lost to Paraguay yesterday, so it didn't quite come off the sort of the great story of Brendan Rodgers' brilliant acquisition then turning good in the Copa America didn't quite come true.
It does say something about what people think of him and how he's rated at the moment, which I think is encouraging for Liverpool, especially as they've spent that much money on him. Really.
Indeed. So, well, I suppose the quick question is he gonna be a brilliant acquisition next season, or do you think? It says it's a 5-year contract. He's a young player coming into the Premier League from outside. Is he going to be making an impact first season, or do you think it might be a bit in and out prospect further down the line?
I do think it's a bit of a gamble, really. It's very difficult to say. I mean, there is his compatriot Coutinho there, which I think will probably help, and it could also be true that there might be a similar kind of 3-4-2-1 system going on. I think if he's kind of deployed in a team like that, maybe with sort of Coutinho alongside him, that I could imagine him settling kind of more naturally into kind of a system like that, perhaps. Okay,
sounds good. Let's move on to the next one so we get through these done deals. Next one was Nathaniel Klein, which Liverpool have been pillaging Southampton for quite a while. This is now the second season of general pillaging that's been going on, which apparently 10.5 million rising to 12.5 million. Presumably he is going to be playing quite a lot, so I think we can safely just assume it's a 12.5 million deal. This will be, I guess, replacing Glenn Johnson, who I think they've released on a free, who had a massive nosedive. He went pretty much from being an England first team regular and a sort of obviously Liverpool first team regular to getting an injury and then basically completely dropping off the radar and now completely leaving the club as well. They've obviously signed Klein, 12.5 million, good purchase.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, I think. They kind of need, I think, like some more English players, a bit more of an English core. I think it's what they need. They sort of splashed out on a lot of money on a lot of sort of a bit more untested kind of foreign players, which didn't really work out. I think they need to get some people who will just kind of do what they, do what's expected of them. We've seen them in the Premier League before. They're English. And we just know what we're going to get. I think they do need some of that, definitely. So I think that's a good signing.
All good. Other one, which actually was done, one of the first transfers, I think, of the window was Liverpool acquiring Milner off Man City as his contract has run out, which I thought was quite an interesting one, actually, seeing it. I'm wondering how, because presumably Milner's wanting to leave Man City because he doesn't get enough first-team football. Yet I do wonder if he's going to be playing that. He's not going to be a straight replacement for Steven Gerrard, and I don't know if it was just a case of Liverpool getting him because he was available, or whether they actually, or whether. I suppose the other side of saying perhaps he would be interchanged with Lallana quite nicely because they could probably play relatively similar roles, wide right, or do you have him in the middle and leave Chan as a centre back again for another season before you move him into midfield later along the line? I don't know. What do you think of this one? I think
that's it. I could see him playing a lot, but he might be kind of the player who isn't in their absolute best first 11, but is sort of quickly in the team if someone's injured or unavailable. Because that's it. You could. If they play sort of 3-4-2-1, you could probably realistically play him anywhere in middle four or even as part of the middle two.
So you reckon he's going to be playing exactly the same role for Liverpool he does for Man City?
Yeah, I think so, but I think he'll be doing that. He'll be in the team more though, but with greater regularity. Yeah, that's what I think.
All good. Next one then, another free transfer is Danny Ings from Burnley, who had his moments last season. He got a decent number of goals for a player in a team who were essentially bottom of the league. I saw him a little bit in the under-21s, which he didn't do a great deal, although, admittedly, at the same time, the big problem is with the England under-21s is exactly the same as the senior squad. They're awful at creating chances from open play because they've got no ability to create chances from their midfield. So, although I didn't think he did that well, I think it was more an indictment of the poor grade midfield that England were putting out as opposed to the poor quality striker. But do you see him, Sturridge has his injury issues. Can you see him playing quite a lot next season?
It's difficult to say, really, isn't it? I think it's going to be a long summer for transfers. We'll probably see quite a few more players coming in. But I mean, I could see him being sort of maybe not being first choice, maybe coming off the bench a lot, getting quite a bit of game time. I mean, I think it is a good signing for Liverpool, really, though, because I think in the same way that Nathaniel Clyne is, actually, because I think Brendan Rodgers does have quite a good sort of record at Liverpool anyway of sort of bringing young players through. Really, I think. Yeah. I think that's sort of encouraging.
I mean,
really.
I'd say looking at that compared to the signings of Balotelli and Lambert last season.
Oh, it's a much better signing.
A vastly more intelligent acquisition.
Yes. Yeah.
And obviously, he doesn't cost anything either. So yeah, I think it's pretty much a sort of no-lose situation, really. Even if he plays badly, hell, you got him for free. He's a young player.
He's English.
Someone else might want him. Yeah, basically, even if he does badly, you could probably sell him in a year or two's time for at least 2 or 3 million, and you've still made, you've still broken even, probably even on his wages when that's accounted for. And then a couple other ones which aren't really good. Well, just putting a quick word on these because I don't think they're going to be doing much in regards to the first team. You wouldn't have thought. Liverpool signed defender Joe Gomez, supposed to be about £3.5 million from Charlton. He's in England under 29 international. Sounds like he's basically going to be bought and then loaned back to the Championship club, which I think Derby were the favourites last time I saw. But seen anything of this guy? You think he might?
I haven't really, no. I mean, but I guess 3.5 million for sort of someone 18 years old. I mean, obviously people think he might be worth having in the team in a few years' time. Yep.
Okay. And the other one, I said no impact. Although, I mean, Adam Bogdan's been signed on free from Bolton, the goalkeeper, who actually I think has he pretty much been there since Bolton were in the Premier League. I can't quite remember.
I think he's been there a little while now. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Jones, the reserve keeper, is utterly atrocious. Was it Brad Jones? That's the one, isn't it? Every time he's played, he just looks like a massive liability. So even if he's coming in as a reserve, it's probably going to be a noticeable improvement. Although, could put some pressure on Mignolet if they don't sign another goalkeeper during this period.
That's it. I mean, was he first choice for Bolton?
I would have thought so.
I think he has been, hasn't he? So I mean, that is, he's obviously not one of these goalkeepers who spends his whole life on the bench. So that's it. I mean, who knows if he could be a realistic option if Mignolet does underperform. Yeah.
Indeed. Okay, so that's Liverpool done. Next one, Everton. So not big news regarding them, but a couple of transfers. They've made their Deulofeu acquisition permanent for 4.3 million. I think a couple of seasons ago he looked really good. The first season they had him on loan. Last season kind of went along with Everton's form, really, which was intermittent and not overly inspiring. Good, worth the money.
I mean, I think if he can show the form, when he was at Everton a couple of years ago, then I think he could be a really useful player, whether it's just coming off the bench or being in the first team. I think he's a real impact player, or has the potential to be. Yeah,
indeed. And the other one is, I was wondering every time I see Tom Cleverley go anywhere, I always wonder if it's just sort of an easy way to fill up an English player slot. You just sort of sit them on the bench, and you hope they don't really have to do much, but they'll add to your homegrown quota. They acquired Tom Cleverley. I mean, I guess he's going to be kind of competing with Barkley the quality. Yeah, he's not as good as what they've already got. I wouldn't say he's more just there to fill up a space.
You never know. Maybe he'll.
He might do a Jordan Henderson. He might suddenly have an inspired season where he goes from looking like a not particularly great player into someone half decent.
I mean, he was fairly highly rated a few years ago, and it stalled for him at Man United. You never know. He might
he's young enough to
give him this season, really, and he might turn out to be a sort of passably worthwhile member of a football team. Yeah,
indeed, cool. Okay, this is quite interesting. Going to Swansea, who again have made a couple of signings already. we've got, which is again, I did find this one of the more interesting ones actually, was Andre Ayew from Marseille to Swansea on a free 4-year contract. I mean, this is a player who, at least, well, 1 or 2 seasons ago, you would have thought he'd be going to a far bigger club than Swansea if he left Marseille. And to me, this looks like quite a good... Well, unless there's something going on that we don't know about, this looks like a pretty good acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very... I'm kind of amazed that he hasn't gone to a bigger club. I mean, the value for money that represents, no, on a free transfer. I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, the only way I can attempt to explain it is think, well, you know, maybe he wanted to come to a bigger league, maybe specifically England, and just for whatever reason, the other sort of big clubs at the moment just like, no, you know, we're not sure about this, so we're going to pass on it for now. But I mean, he's definitely someone. I mean, I guess a bit like Swansea bought in
Michu and Bonnie as well.
Yeah, exactly. He could be someone who moves to a smaller club where, you know, he's kind of going to be more of a focal point. Have a season, a good couple of seasons there, and then hopefully move on to a bigger club. Really.
Indeed. Well, yeah. So it sounds like Swansea are going to keep up their record of getting in an amazingly good player for next to nothing, and then probably turning a very nice profit on them in a year or two's time.
I mean, he's excellent, and I think he's very well suited to the Premier League. He's kind of hard-working, very physical, and I mean, he scores a lot of goals from the left. He's kind of, I mean, he's certainly not as good as Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's a different style of player. But I think what they do both have in common is they do both come in off the line a lot to kind of get almost like poacher's goals, and he's also very, very good in the air, and so he's a real I mean, that's quite a rare thing to have a winger who is as good in the air as him, and I think that could really cause, you know, you can really cause havoc, I think, if you're able to do that and fulfil the other roles that a winger needs to fulfil in the team. So
signing of the season so far?
I think
potentially signing of the season even by the end of the transfer window?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at, I mean, Liverpool spending 29 million on Firmino or however much it was, I mean, Andre Ayew could be worth that much money, you know, and they've got him for free, really. So, I mean, it's a sort of signing, maybe Arsenal, you know,
Well, that does
in the sense that it's value, such good value for money. It's a very
I mean, it does pose an interesting question though. Is that, I mean, presumably Liverpool would have been aware of Ayew presumably being available for nothing to acquire. Yet presumably if they went ahead of Swansea, you know, if he had an option of Liverpool or Swansea, he would have probably chosen Liverpool. You'd have thought
so, yeah.
So I mean, evidently Liverpool must either very much value Firmino or very much undervalue Ayew. But I guess, as I said, we will find out as the season unfolds. Other one was Frank Tabernou from Saint Etienne. They must have quite a good French network from Saint Etienne to Swansea. Rumoured to be around 3.5 million. Tried to sign him in the January transfer window. They've got him now, so relatively long-term target. Just to sort of shore up the defensive region. Not that they had a very good defensive record last season, so just another one to the bag, I suppose.
So it looks like he's got a good left foot, a bit handy from free kicks, but apart from that, I sort of haven't heard too much of him or know that much about him. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what he's like.
Cool. And then actually, let's go on then to a little bit of international of what's happened. Which Juventus has been involved in 2 quite interesting transfers. One in, one out. So in terms of, actually, do you want to do ins or out first, Wes?
Ins.
Do it in. Okay. So Mario Mandzukic from Atletico, 13.6 million. Actually, should we do the out in line as well, because it is a direct replacement almost in some respects. So basically, Mandzukic has come in for Atletico Madrid for 13.6 million, and then Tevez has now left to go to Boca, so he's out. Which apparently, you know, turning down interest from Liverpool, PSG, and Atletico as well in the process. But I mean, given that his appearance with Man City a few seasons ago, where he just sort of disappeared off to play golf in South America for 6 months and then came back at the end of the season to sort of help them win the championship. Evidently he's been wanting to head there for a while, and he's maybe got to the point now when the promise of far higher European wages is not enough to keep him here, I suppose. But in general, Mandzukic, Tevez, what's your thinkings around that exchange? And obviously, at the moment, we're looking at Atletico being the weaker as the result, but there's still time for them to get someone else in. So just in terms of Juve,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like kind of decent direct kind of replacement, really. I mean, I think Tevez does offer a bit more kind of variety in his play, maybe, than Mandzukic does. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I guess you can only presume Tevez wanted to go, and I think they'll be a little bit weaker, really, for not having him, even with Mandzukic.
Okay. But you think, presumably you think Mandzukic is still going to do a good job for Juve, if not quite the sort of tenacious sort of pitbull running around that Tevez does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good acquisition. I mean, obviously they've got quite a few other strikers on their books, so maybe one or two that will be getting a bit better next season. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure, Juventus being Juventus, they'll be all right.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, all right. I suppose maybe not another Champions League final next season. Well, then we'll get onto that with some other interesting transfer speculation, I suppose. So just rounding up the last of the other bits and pieces. Obviously, again, very much. Actually, I think this deal was done almost before the transfer window started, which was Memphis Depay. Undisclosed, but I think it's generally reported to be around 25 million. Going to Man U, potentially as a replacement for their slightly sort of misfiring front line with obviously Van Persie and Falcao, both looking a combination of not match fit and not overly clinical last season. What do you reckon? Upgrades?
I mean, I think this is a really good signing. Actually, I mean, he can play up front. I mean, I probably see him as more of a winger, really. He's kind of, he kind of reminds me a bit of Robben, but a right-footed Robben, basically. He really quite a lot. He really is that kind of player. Okay. He's a player who dribbles a lot, starts out wide, and comes in and scores. He does have a very good right foot. Some goals he's been scoring this year in the Eredivisie are pretty good. A lot of free kicks, a lot of sort of dribbly. He's Robben. Robben used to play for PSV. He's just stronger on his other foot. That's so great.
You're not fearing the occasional. Well, not even occasional. The not almost frequent. Okay, obviously the translation from the Eredivisie to the Premier League. Obviously, brilliant looking players can suddenly become very very average or make it. But do you think Depay is going to not? He's going to make that transition quite easily. I mean,
it might take him a little while to adapt. I think that's it. I think especially because he looks so good in the Eredivisie, he might, in a way, be a little bit surprised at how much tougher the league is. I mean, you look at someone like Wilfred Boney's come over and he has adapted, and he's looked very good, but he's, certainly even after a couple of seasons, he hasn't been as effective as he was in the Eredivisie.
Indeed.
But I think Memphis Depay is a little bit more. His kind of attributes maybe will preserve themselves a bit more in this league, whereas I think Boney often did so well because he was just so much stronger than everyone else in the league.
Really
I think Memphis Depay's kind of things like his shooting ability and stuff will kind of translate well to the Premiership.
I guess you probably can look at it about goal ratio halving or that. I mean, I guess we saw it with Hazard a bit actually when he came over from France a few seasons ago, where probably his goal tally halved if not thirded, making that transition as a kind of winger from a slightly easier league into the Premier League. Next I'll just probably get a yes or no on this one because it's not particularly big news, but I put it in because it's quite entertaining. So Mika Richards has finally left Man City, although he was on loan at Fiorentina last season, made 10 league appearances there. So basically he's opted to move to Villa for a free. potentially coming in a centre-back role as instead of a right-back position. So simply the question is, will Micah Richards play? Yes or no for Villa? Will he be? Will he be a worthwhile purchase? Or
I don't really remember the last time I saw him play. So, what always seemed to be the best thing about him was just the fact he was really fast.
Fast and strong.
If he is still fast and strong, even if he's just used as a sort of sub, if they're 1-0 down, it's sort of 80 minutes, and they need to get a goal back, maybe bring Micah Richards on at right back, give him the ball, work the ball down the right, and see if you can sort of terrorise the sort of tired players with a very fast, strong man.
Okay, cool. And then the other piece of news which put in, just I think literally as we are recording this, as we speak, Petr Cech is finalising. I think he's still got a medical, or he's undergoing a medical currently. Moved to Arsenal for 11 million, which in my eyes, that's the signing Arsenal have been needing to make for probably the last 3, if not 4 years.
Yeah, solidity, experience, leadership, I suppose. Yeah, I think it could be. It's one of those sort of sensible, potentially stabilising kind of transfers. That's it. Maybe Arsenal have been missing.
Yeah, I think he'll be easily the best goalkeeper signing they've probably made since Jens Lehmann, I'd have thought. He's a noticeable. Well, providing he hasn't lost much in the last season of sitting on the bench, which has only been 1 year, so it probably isn't too bad. But I think he's a noticeable step up in the goalkeeping department for them, and will be a step along the road to hopefully getting a slightly more solid defence, because that has fairly often been a bit of an Achilles heel for them. So hopefully that will go well for them, and I can't see why it wouldn't, to be perfectly honest. Because unless in the last year he has suddenly become massively incompetent. So, should we end that section on done deals?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so we're now hopefully as up to date as we can. We're going to look at a few of the football rumours that are flying around at the moment. So we will start with the long-running ones, and then maybe go on to slightly more transient current ones and have some thoughts on that. So in regards to the long-running, see the general the general line going around at the moment is that Man City haven't bought anyone because their director's currently on holiday. So apparently when he gets back from holiday, all hell's going to break loose, and the vaults are going to be thrown open, and Man City are going to sort of sweep up every good player in Europe, it seems. So yeah, there's three big long-running stories about Man City. Obviously they've lost James Milner and they need to fill English slots, so the two big English names linked to Man City are Sterling for somewhere in the region of 50 million, it sounds, and also it does sound a lot like going back to the Liverpool thing with them spending money early. Sounds like a deal which is quite likely to go through. And then obviously Jack Wilshere as well, which is quite an interesting one. But should we start with your thoughts? Sterling, you reckon pretty much a goer?
Yeah,
about the right price.
I expect that will go through. I don't know really. I think it is a gamble. He has shown when he's got very good players around him and he's given space that he can be an absolutely fantastic player. Whereas last season, Liverpool were a lot worse on the whole. I don't think he was, in terms of the position he was asked to play, it plays to his biggest strengths. So will he prove to be worth, even 40 million? I do have questions about that. I think he's much more effective in a more central role. And for Man City, I think he'll probably end up playing out wide, which I don't think. Yeah. I think decreases his value and his effectiveness.
Okay. Well, could you see hypothetically if Pellegrini was going to play a 4-4-2 diamond with Silva at the tip of the diamond, an Aguero Sterling combination?
Yeah, you could do. I think obviously the argument often is that Silva's more effective. If they're playing a flat 4-4-2 anyway, he's more effective as a person behind. But you could also in some kind of front two partnership. I think Sterling would work there well. But yeah, maybe a diamond. That would. I think you're right. Yeah, that could could be a good option, and Sterling's played in that kind of system before, and
I think he could work well with Aguero in that combination because the reason he was so good for Liverpool is that you basically had two really fast guys in Sturridge and Suarez, basically just kind of running off in all different directions, and then eventually, if you break the defence, pull the defence so wide, one of your really fast guys will get in behind them. So if you've got Aguero and Sterling both sort of running off down the channels either side, and sort of David Silva knocked in behind, then hopefully you should be able to one or the other one should maybe find a pocket. But we'll see if Pellegrini goes for that or whether he goes 4-3-3 or whatever he decides to do. Other one then, Wiltshire has touched upon talk of them maybe trying to offer somewhere in the region of 30 million for Wiltshire. Do you reckon that's about on the nose? Would it be a good signing?
I think it could be. Again, it does depend what system they're going to play really as well. What they really need is kind of effective wingers if they're going to stick with kind of 4-4-2 formation. Like you say, if they're going to go for a diamond, which I think Pellegrini played at Villarreal when he was there, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Would it be a good replacement for Fernandinho or Well, you probably have Fernando sitting a bit deeper, but Yaya Toure and Wiltshire as a midfield with Silva as well?
Yeah, possibly. It does look like Wiltshire is a player
if he's not injured as well.
Yeah, he does look like he's someone who can play different roles in a team, and I think when he is fit, he does often look like a very effective player to have in your team. Yeah. So I think it could be a good signing.
Yeah, that's it. So I think looking at that from my perspective, I think for a of the moment signing, I think it would. I think it's better. It would be. It works out well in the sense. I think Arsenal don't necessarily need Wiltshire. He'd still be more of an investment for 1 or 2 seasons down the line when you look at Ozil and Cazorla potentially leaving and then him coming in to fill the gaps. Whereas from Man City, it's almost an instantaneous thing in that he probably is a better option than Fernandinho. Currently, he's got a more rounded game and he's got a lot more craft to his game as well. That is, of course, if he remains fit. So I think, Man City would be in a position of, they should be quite interested if they can get hold of him because I think he would be a good purchase. But it's whether Arsenal balance up letting him go now and him not necessarily playing much next season, or keeping hold of him and him not playing much next season with the prospect of hopefully him being a main team regular in the next season or two when the slightly elder players either get shipped out or lose form. The other one, which is just slightly mad in my books, Paul Pogba to Man City. Apparently, it's going to take more than 70 million to acquire him.
It does seem mad. Juventus do seem like a team who, if enough money comes in, they will sell the player. But there's talk that Vidal might be leaving as well, and I can't see them letting
both of them
Vidal and Pogba go. I think Vidal might be the more likely one to go.
Yeah, is Pogba? Is Pogba only being given a 70 million price tag because Juve made enough money in Champions League?
That's it. They don't need to sell him, so it would be silly money. And it depends what happens with Toure, who it now sounds like kind of wants to stay and sounds like he might be a bit more committed. And I guess they're. Unless they have a different system, you're not going to have Pogba and Toure in the same team, really. They're going to fulfil a similar role.
Yeah, so I suppose the question is then, just before we move on to the next one, is, say Juve, is Pogba worth 70 million? Basically, if Man City do acquire him for 70 million, yes, we can probably accept that he will be an improvement on their current squad. But seeing as you could potentially buy, say, Sterling and Wiltshire for basically the same price as Paul Pogba, if you had an option of Sterling and Wiltshire or Pogba, which is the better value for money?
If I was Man City's manager, I think Sterling and Wiltshire together are better value than Pogba, I think.
Okay, let's move on to the next one then. So this rumour has been circulating. We're sort of halfway through last season. It felt like when this started. Is De Gea going to Real Madrid? The ideas that they'd probably have to break the transfer record for a goalkeeper. I think Buffon was something like 32.5 or something like that.
Something in that region.
Was it about 50 million euros? So in pounds, that was like 32.5 million pounds or something.
Around that, yeah.
So I think they're looking in that ballpark, maybe a bit more for him if they want him. I mean, De Gea didn't say he wanted to go to Real Madrid, but a lot of the news circulating seems to be that he'd be, very happy to go there if Man U don't dig their heels in too much. So what do you reckon going to happen? About the right price, etc., etc.
I mean, it does look like they could be going in for a new goalkeeper soon. I really wouldn't be surprised if he is a major target for them. I mean, with Man United, I think he's kind of one of their better players and bigger success stories kind of recently. I mean, I think if they're serious about trying to kind of build a team to challenge for the title, I think they let De Gea go. That's a real big blow to. So I think he is one of the sort of people you like. Definitely, probably maybe even the first name on the team sheet really for next season. That's so I think that's pretty bad news.
So their chance of replacing him like for like, seeing as Arsenal have already signed up Czech, it's going to be along the lines of potentially a younger goalkeeper. Well, yeah, they're not well. Given that, as Ivan say, De Gea is probably in the top 3 or 4 goalkeepers in the world at the moment in terms of form, at least. Admittedly, he has only had one good season. He was pretty rubbish last season.
Yes.
So there is always the side of you which you can say maybe that was just he had his one sort of spike of form and maybe he'll reduce. Although admittedly with goalkeepers form doesn't fluctuate quite the same way it does with especially attacking players. But then going the other way round, we've got talks of Ramos to Manchester United. Earlier speculation put it in the region of about 30-35 million, so you'd be looking at almost a like-for-like swap with De Gea going to Madrid and Ramos coming back. Although there's an article from the Sunday People today which was putting the price for Ramos somewhere in the region of 63 million, which to me is absolutely absurd. No. But and then the Independent was talking about Ramos actually wanting to leave Real Madrid as well. I don't know. Would you? Let's go. If we go back to the idea of Ramos being worth about the same as De Gea, ignoring the fact that De Gea means a lot more to Man U than Ramos does to Real Madrid, which is fairly evident. I think Real Madrid can easily get in another defender to fill the gap where Ramos is, and probably get a lot less red cards as well. But Man U are going to struggle to fill De Gea. But just purely in terms of like for like, if you had your team, is De Gea more valuable to you, or is Ramos more valuable to you?
I think if I was Man United, I'd rather hold on to De Gea. Really, I think he's worth more really because he's a lot younger really, and yeah, I just think he's got a lot more
Smalling-Jones defensive combination.
Yeah, that is a worry, but he's already bedded in, he's already there, and I think that counts for something as well. It's not a gamble in the same way bringing someone new in for that kind of money is, and so I think for stability and for reliability, he sort of gets the nod there as well.
Okay, so those are the long running ones. So we've got a few new ones to finish off with today. I think we've got a small handful of them, shall we say? So the interesting one of the bigger interesting ones that came out was the idea that Man U would be pretty much swapping Di Maria for Cavani for PSG. Would you be happy on that deal both ways?
Yeah, I think Man United, in terms of the wide areas, a lot of their attacking midfielders are better in the centre. So I think in that sense, Di Maria is a useful player for them. But maybe, I think, to be honest, he did seem to be out of their team quite a bit later in the season, and I think they probably need a good striker more. Obviously, Falcao didn't measure up. I think Van Persie, he's still very good, but they really lack pace up front. They need someone who can really lead the line and I think get behind defences. And I think Cavani could be that player really. Yeah, so I think he'd be a more useful player in their team than Maria, to be honest.
So if this goes through, could we be looking at a Cavani, Depay? Or I don't know. How would you fit that in if you've got Rooney, Cavani, and Depay?
I think.
Would you be playing 4-3-3 with Rooney attacking midfield, or would you play 4-4-2 with Rooney in attacking midfield, or Depay wide? Or
yeah, I think Depay. I think he will probably end up playing wide left and cutting in from there. I think that's possibly his strongest position, although I have seen him deployed as a striker as well. And then, that's it. Probably Cavani leading the line, Rooney behind him. And then,
so could this be a return to the classic Alex Ferguson 4-4-2 wide wingers formation?
Something between some sort of 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 kind of formation. Yeah, maybe with, I don't know who would be on the right, maybe Mata or Januzaj, something like that, maybe.
Okay. Cool. Should we carry on the Man U front? Actually, talking of the classic 4-4-2 formation, a nice attacking British right back in Seamus Coleman, who apparently is valued around 20 million. This is from the Sun, apparently, and that Louis van Gaal is because I was thinking they had Valencia playing it right back for a lot of last season.
Never really convinced for Man United.
No, and I think I don't know if I assume Rafael da Silva's still there, but evidently he doesn't fancy him too much either. I mean, again, he mostly seems to be just a kind of red card liability half the time he plays, really. So I think, I guess we'd be in no doubt that Coleman would be an improvement.
Yeah, I mean,
would Everton let him go? That's more the question.
I mean, for 20 million or something, it seems like about the kind of money they might sort of be forced to, because the player might be like, I want to move. I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, and he is good enough to play for, no disrespect, a bigger team than Everton. And I also think, to be honest, I can just see him in a Man United shirt playing well. He seems like a real Man United player, Seamus Coleman. Actually, I think he'd be a very good signing for them, a very good fit, and I think he'd probably hit the ground running.
Cool. And this one, which apparently is pretty much going through now, is 25 million for the pillaging of Southampton again continues. 25 million deal for 25-year-old Morgan Schneiderlin, who was about the only player not to leave Southampton last season. I said obviously Liverpool were, I think it was Liverpool who were pretty hot on him last season and didn't get a hold of him.
I think quite a few teams have been really. So it's a bit of a coup, I think, for Man United if they manage to sort of push ahead of potentially other interested teams and get him. I think, again, he is, he seems like he could be a good Man United player. I think he's got the right kind of attributes and he's proven himself in the Premier League. So, I think that could be a good.
So you could be looking at a Herrera, Schneiderlin midfield, maybe even Blint as well if he's playing defence.
Yeah.
Or Michael Carrick, could this be the end for Michael Carrick as well? That's the question. But I think general improvement. Going back to Manchester United goalkeepers, there's talk of them acquiring, I guess, as a potential, even maybe as a potential second choice, seeing as they, I don't know, they had Victor Valdez there last season, didn't they? But he might still be knocking around, but I didn't really rate him when he played for Barcelona, and he definitely isn't going to be getting any better. But there's talk of Jasper Cillessen, the Ajax goalkeeper, going to Man U.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, spending sort of 20 million on a sort of second choice goalkeeper, I mean, would be a question mark. I presume he'd sort of be a replacement for De Gea if De Gea leaves. In which case, I don't know. I mean, I think he seems like to be one of a number of sort of Dutch goalkeepers who have sort of some caps for Holland, but there doesn't seem to be a clear sort of goalkeeper who really stands out from their sort of clutch of quite good goalkeepers.
Who was it? Was it Cillessen that played most of under Van Gaal for most of the last tournament?
I'm actually not too sure, to be honest.
If it was, I wasn't that impressed, and I think also he was taken off with Tim Krul coming on for the penalties. If memory serves, based on Van Gaal's decision that Krul's a bit bigger.
That said, I mean, he clearly hasn't distinguished himself in the fact we're really asking Who is this person? When has he played?
What has he done? Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, let's carry on. Let's have some positive Southampton news, which Ronald Koeman might be, as a replacement for Schneiderlin, might be lining up Jordi Klaassen from Feyenoord for somewhere in the region of 10 million, or Lille's 25-year-old midfielder Idrissa Gueye for about 7 million. Seen either of these two play?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordi Klaassen. I think I've sort of had a look at him, and he looks like a sort of little sort of Paul Scholes sort of style player. He actually looks really good, and I think it could be the case with Southampton. Certainly, in selling Schneiderlin in and getting a replacement, they sort of do what they managed to do last season, at least in that respect, and kind of. I don't know. Come back smiling. Having made quite a bit of money and have found another sort of very decent acquisition.
It is going to be interesting to see if. I mean, it sounds like I suppose they've lost Klein already, haven't they? But whether they whether they manage to repeat the trick, I suppose, to a certain degree. Because I mean, I guess Font's probably going to still be there, and Bertrand may well be. So most of the defence might remain.
Yeah.
So hopefully, and James Ward-Prowse as well, I think is another one for the future. But yeah, how about Gueye?
I actually don't know too much about him. I don't know if you've ever seen him play.
I can't say I have.
Yeah, best of luck. I look forward to seeing him. I mean, they seem to have made some other good signings, so maybe he's amazing.
So are you predicting another successful season for Southampton, or do you think last year was a bit of a bit of a fluke in terms of signings?
I think they might struggle to do quite as well as last season. I think teams will be more ready. They won't underestimate Southampton next season.
They will probably, I assume they'll have Jay Rodriguez back, who missed all of last season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Not that he'll be a deal breaker, I don't think, in terms of their position, but it will mean that when Pella's not playing so well, they do actually have another option, because they had nothing basically. Oh well, they bought Sean Long, who basically just runs around a lot, and occasionally might score 5 goals a season. Okay, moving on. Liverpool in talks to sign Sweden under-21 defender Ludwig Augustinsson from FC Copenhagen. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know anything about him apart from that apparently before a recent game against the under-20 England under-21s, he said he thought the England under-21s were overrated. So he's obviously got some attitude and some confidence, but we'll have to see whether he can match up to the Premier League.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to commentators saying his name as well. I mean, if there's something quite intense going on in the box and they've got to get it out quickly, that's just not going to happen. There's too many syllables in there. This was an interesting one actually. Fabian Delph. Apparently, he's got somewhere in the region of an £8 million buyout clause if a club who are in European competition come in for him. And back to Manchester City, there's mentions that, again, probably as part of Man City's requirement to fill their English player quota, they might just acquire Fabian Delph. I'm going to presume to basically sit on the bench and fill a quota spot. Do you agree with that statement, or do you think anything else to offer?
That wouldn't surprise me, really, to be honest. I mean, I think they do. I mean, I think Man City are quite short in some areas of worthy players. Again, I think kind of out wide they're, distinctly lacking. And if they change to a system which utilises more central players, like a Diamond, for example, I mean, you could see him perhaps even playing quite a bit, really. I mean,
do you think he's got the goals in him to really ever challenge for a serious position in a Premier League winning team?
I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily good enough for that. But I think Man City, their other players aren't good enough, really. Like Nasri, I don't think has consistently shown that he deserves a place. Okay,
so if I put to you my opinion, I think if Delph went there, that would be the death knell for his career. I think he would be stuck potentially on the bench for the next 2 or 3 years, and he'll come out of it. He'll do a Jack Rodwell basically. At least, and he's slightly older. I think it will be a Jack Rodwell occasion for him of disappearing for a few years and coming back and never being able to up the game again.
It's possible. I mean, I suppose James Milner seems to have sort of, not necessarily been in the first 11, but he seems to have been able to sort of remain in the squad. So, maybe he's a new James Milner. Who knows?
I think he'll have that. Maybe get that printed on a T-shirt for him. Okay. Right, a couple more bits of news to go. Leicester boss Nigel Pearson is considering $7 million for Stuart Downing because apparently West Ham, I think it's Bilic they've got as their new manager now,
right?
Which I think is actually very interesting managerial acquisition. But apparently West Ham don't really want Stuart Downing anymore. After a bright start to last season and then a tailing off when basically Andy Carroll and Valencia all got injured and his crosses weren't really finding someone to head the ball in the net anymore. Leicester are still in the league, so there's obviously a stunning last sort of 10-game fight back where they won practically every single one of them. Is Downing going to improve their squad massively? Is he worth $7 million?
I mean, I think he's sort of had one good bit of form in the last sort of 5 years or something. So I mean, I think it'd be a mistake to sign him, especially for $7 million, which would be a big amount of money for a club like Leicester. I think there's definitely
you've got Andre Ayew out there for free.
Exactly. There must be a better way to spend that money.
Okay, let's go a bit international then. Sevilla striker Carlos Bacca is apparently. I mean, there's been a bit of the kind of run around going about where Bacca may or may not end up. The Gazzetta dello Sport, the Italian newspaper, is claiming that he's set for a move to AC Milan because they've been the first club, it seems, to agree to pay the £21 million release clause for him. He's a bit young for AC Milan, isn't he? 28? Might be a bit sprightly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm not sure he'll fit in.
Sort of doesn't have a walk. He's not arriving on a walking stick and doing his sort of. Anyway, good signing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he seems like I think he's got about 20 goals for the last 2 seasons. So I think so. I think he could be effective. I mean, obviously moving to Serie A, where sort of not many people score many goals, maybe he'll get sort of 15 at best, but that's still a good return in that league. So yeah, I think that could be a good signing.
Cool. Well, yeah, watch this space, see if he does actually go there or whether he ends up somewhere else. Okay, next one. Liverpool apparently are after Essir, the Spanish midfielder from Real Madrid. Apparently bidded around 15 million. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think could be very good, really. I mean, obviously they've still got players like sort of Lucas in the holding role, but I think that's very much what this guy's specialty is, really. He looks like he's got very good ball retention, sort of
so good Brendan Rodgers,
good
style.
passer. Yeah, I think he. Some players go to Real Madrid and don't really get a chance there, and then leave and really show that they're excellent. And I think he could be a player who goes somewhere and really proves that he's a good player. I think 15 million, he could be pretty good value for money.
Do you want to have a go at pronouncing his surname?
Illaramendi.
Illaramendi.
That's my best guess.
That's going to be even worse than Ludwig Augustinsson. Well, at least they're not both going to Liverpool. Right. Penultimate bit of news. The director at Fiorentina says Serie A club have made an insane offer for Chelsea winger Mohamed Salah. So he was on loan last year. I mean, do you think it's going to be one of those? Do you think Chelsea are going to let Salah go?
I mean, I could see them maybe waiting one more year. I mean, I don't quite know where he would fit into the Chelsea team. I mean, he's just doesn't seem to be the sort of player who sort of in terms of kind of chasing back is going to do that much. I mean, he's more of a just attacking player, but he's insanely good. I mean, I could see them maybe if Fiorentina were keen to keep him, loaning him for another year. See what the situation is then. I mean, obviously they brought Cuadrado in.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, I guess, the similarity. You might say another attacking player. I mean, obviously different style, but a lack of defensive capacity as well, and he had the odd bench appearance over the course of the season. But
yeah.
if they don't, it seems really if you've got an attacking player who isn't prepared to work his way back, then Mourinho's usually pretty reluctant. Apart from with Robin, or admittedly a few seasons ago, but he generally is pretty reluctant to play them.
But I mean, he is. I was sort of taking a look at him again today, and he's ridiculously good. Really, I mean, he is just a sickeningly talented player going forward. Insanely fast. There's this goal he scored against Juventus last season where just sort of I don't think it's after a corner or something, and he just gets the ball in his own half, sort of, and there's two Juventus players sort of just behind him chasing after him. There's another Juventus player like in front of him who he just like completely outspeeds, just speeds past them down the pitch. They're chasing him. He's still running at full pelt, really fast. And he just completely boots the ball past Buffon while he's at full pelt and being sort of chased down by three Juventus players, and that's not an easy thing to do to Juventus.
Indeed. Cool. Well, we will now finish off with the final piece of news, which is literally, this news was coming through a few hours ago before we just started this broadcast, which was Arda Turan, who apparently has a £25 million buyout clause, is being quite heftily looked at by Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool and Arsenal, with one of those clubs looking fairly likely to make a deal to acquire said player. So should we just finish off with your one-word answer then, Bias? Presuming he does go to one, Chelsea, Man U, Liverpool or Arsenal? And maybe embellish it afterwards, actually.
I actually really do, I find that difficult to answer. I'm going to go Man United, actually, I think. I mean, they maybe have been lacking a bit in kind of wider areas, and he does seem like someone who you can, even though, again, he probably ultimately is best as a sort of central attacking midfielder, you can put him out on the left or the right, and he will play there, and he is good there. I think maybe Man United might just need him a little bit more than the other teams.
Okay, cool. So we'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening. We may do another one of these at some point, depending what happens and how things go. I mean, Bice is off to Mexico, I think, in a fairly short while, so if you do a sort of Spanish broadcast, chances are, if this does come back again at some point, it may be during the January transfer window where there's considerably less news, but hopefully enough, seeing as we've been talking for pretty much an hour now on this. Should be enough to keep us entertained. But until whenever next time may be, goodbye everyone.
Goodbye.